next presenter is Joe Koufman. He is the CEO and founder of AgencySparks. Joe is a connector of people. After spending 6 years in agency life, he recognized a gap in the market and founded AgencySparks in 2014. AgencySparks helps brands and agencies connect with each other. So I'm going to turn the controls over to him.
Great. Thank you, Annelle.
You're welcome.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Annelle and Marketing Mob. I wrote in the chat room in the comments, I welcome your questions during my discussion, but hecklers will be delivered to the pit of misery. So I'm excited to talk to you all about connecting brands and agencies together. That's something that I'm very passionate about. As Annelle kind of mentioned in my introduction, I've always been a connector of people. There are actually 3 marriages that have resulted from me introducing the couple to each other. And so I kind of leveraged that skill into building a company, AgencySparks. So let me jump in here. I'm not sure if I have controls, Annelle, or not.
Yeah, you do. You're good.
Oh, great. Okay. So I'll jump in a little bit more about what AgencySparks does, but I want to frame the discussion a little bit with you with the situation and the status quo as it stands today. So one of the first things I wanted to point out is that big brands are abandoning the agency of record model. They're basically looking for specialists who can solve specific needs versus having one agency that can do everything for them. And the benefit of specialists is that they're very good at their discipline. The downside to a specialist is that when you have an agency of record, there's only one neck to choke if something goes wrong or if there's something that you don't like. So the other reality today is that the new chief marketing officer, in addition to having to become a technologist and not just a marketer, is that they're like the conductor of the symphony. Or actually, I think maybe even a better analogy would be the leader of the jazz quartet. And their job is to make sure that all of the different players within the quartet are playing in harmony and unison. So that's sort of the way the world is changing in terms of brand and agency relationships. And so, as I mentioned, brands really struggle to find the right marketing agencies for their needs. Agencies really struggle to find the right brands to be clients. And so AgencySparks exists as the matchmaker bridging that gap between brands and agencies. So because we're matchmakers and because Valentine's Day is coming up and it's a very important holiday to any matchmaker, we shot this little video to kind of, well, you'll see, it's a little bit of a spoof of the dating services out there like eHarmony and Match.com, et cetera. So I'm going to play the video. Hopefully it plays okay, and then we can talk about it.
They helped me find my perfect match. It was love at first sight.
There's plenty of fish in the sea, but in no time, they brought me the right catch.
I had a list of non-negotiables, and they found me a partner that exceeded all of my expectations.
I never knew a connection could be this good, this quick.
I was swept off my feet like a fairy tale princess.
This will be an everlasting love.
Hey, princess. I think I was supposed to have that line.
They made sure it was the perfect fit.
A perfect fit.
Hashtag true love.
Sparks flew.
AgencySparks knew we were meant to be together.
AgencySparks listened to my needs and made the perfect agency match.
AgencySparks connected me with a perfect marketing agency for my needs.
I was able to find the perfect agency partner through AgencySparks.
Thanks, AgencySparks.
Thanks, AgencySparks.
Thanks, AgencySparks.
Thanks, AgencySparks.
Thanks, AgencySparks.
So that was a lot of fun for us to shoot. Let me make sure I can get to the next slide here. It was a lot of fun to shoot. We actually, you saw the little disclaimer that said not actors, actual clients. We actually got together a bunch of clients in the room that we actually helped connect their brand with an agency partner of some kind. So what the people you saw in the video were, in order, the marketing directors of Magic Leap down in Florida, Piedmont Healthcare, ADAC, Floor & Decor, and Georgia Pacific Professional. And we had a lot of fun shooting that. It's amazing what some really good Thai food and a couple of drinks will do for putting together a really good quality video. But anyway, and also I saw a question from Lou in the chat, which I'll address. He had asked the question, dealing with lots of different agencies can lead to problems with consistent branding, right? And I'll address that in a minute with you. But as mentioned, we exist to connect brands and marketing agencies together. So brands often view us as a search consultant. A search consultant is a company that brands will hire to run an RFP process, request for proposal process, find the right agencies, and then bring them into the room, and then the client will decide which one they like the best. So that's, brands often look at us like that. Agencies look at us as an extension of their business development efforts. So we help those agencies find clients that are a good fit. And we're typically paid by the agency to make those connections. So we live in the middle between the brand and the agency. And so we see, because we live in that middle, we understand what it takes to make a good match. And so I'll talk about 3 things that we do to help make a good match, and sort of parts of our process and sort of some of the services that we offer. And then I'm going to go into some tips that'll help you when looking for your agency partners. So the first is the agency vetting process. We call it our marketing readiness report. And as part of this process, we actually have conversations with current clients of the agency to understand what they like and don't like about working with the agency. We have conversations with past clients who no longer work with the agency to understand what they liked initially, but also why did they leave. And then we have conversations with agencies, with clients that did not select the agency in a competitive process. And those are often very, very interesting. And we match those sets of conversations with interviews of the senior leadership team within the agency to just understand where there are discrepancies or synergies or parallels between the different perspectives. How self-aware is the agency? So as you're thinking about an agency that might be a good fit for you, I would encourage you to consider talking to their clients to understand what they really believe, and then also talk to the key people in the agency, obviously. The second thing that we do is where we actually outreach on behalf of agencies to brands that might be a good fit. And so there are a lot of different ways we can do this, but I won't go into great detail here. I want to get to the tips. And then the third is pitch consulting. So if one of the agencies gets into a situation with a really big opportunity with a really big client and they don't really know how to navigate that, we can help them with that process, which is the pitch consulting piece of our business. Before I jump into, well, I'm going to skip through this slide, which all this is this kind of summarizes what I just talked about in terms of the value of what we provide and uncovering the truth, and that leading to new business for agencies. I want to get to the tips about how to make a match, but before that, I want to answer Lou's question, which was that dealing with a lot of different agencies can lead to problems with consistency and branding, and it could. I think that as the conductor, it's your job to be the brand defender. It's your job to make sure that all of the agencies are following your guidelines. And often what you'll find is that there's a lead agency who is responsible for the brand. And then there may be some other agencies that are specialists that help with specific pieces. So let me give you an example. You may hire a brand agency that owns your brand. And then you may have an email marketing agency that's focused on email. You may have a social media agency focused on social, or a mobile agency focused on mobile, or a multicultural agency focused on that audience. I mean, I think it's incumbent on you as the owner of the brand to make sure that all your agencies are playing nicely and keeping your brand consistent. I've seen a lot of really good examples of brands that have been able to accomplish that. So anyway, how to make a match? How do you make a good match with an agency? And this is how we do it. And then also you may look at some of these tips for your own usage. And there's sort of 3 steps that I'll cover, and I'll go into a little more detail about each of the 3 steps. The first is understanding the problems and issues, insights, and then making the introductions. And whether you work with AgencySparks or somebody else to help you find the right introductions and make the right introductions, I would recommend they go through these 3 steps. So I'm going to talk first about understanding the things you need to understand. You need to understand your business needs. What are you trying to accomplish from a business standpoint? What are the KPIs, the key performance indicators for your business? Number 2, what's your desired outcome? What are you trying to accomplish from a marketing perspective? Marketing history, what's worked well for you and what hasn't worked well for you in the past? Don't, learn from your mistakes in the past. Agency relationships and agency history. So to Lou's question, how would the agency that you're considering bringing on board fit within the ecosystem of the other marketing efforts and agencies and partners that you have in place? The 5th is evaluation criteria. How are you going to determine which agency might be a good fit for you or which one won't? And then validate your understanding. Like, how can you make sure that you're communicating the needs that you have clearly to both the agency, and also how are they validating that they understand what you're trying to accomplish? So you can ask for that understanding. The next phase or step is insight. So understanding, making sure that this agency might be a good fit for you. What's an example of a past work? It could either be in the same industry or that you're in, or it could be in a different industry, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Maybe you're trying to be different than the rest of your peers or competitors that you're marketing against. So you may want to look for somebody that has different experience or different industry than yours. And then what are some examples of some past really successful relationships? So it's not just about the work, but it's about the relationship with the brands that they're working with. And then the 3rd is some ideas for some potential positive outcomes. Like, and this goes both ways. As a client, are you asking the agency for ideas about how they think this could go? But also, are you providing some examples of how you'd like to see it go in terms of outcomes? So these are insights that come from the understanding phase that you just completed. And then the last phase is the introduction. And this is sort of the simplest part of the 3, but it's also an easy one to botch if you don't follow the steps. So getting permission from both parties. Is it okay to make this connection? Facilitating the warm connection, and that can happen via email or in person or phone or internet. There are lots of different ways to make the connection, but you want it to be a really warm and seamless connection. I often say, if you treat it as if you're the host of a dinner party at your home, if you act as if you're the host, then you'll probably will do it right. The 3rd thing is to make sure that the connection is actually made. So once you make the connection, you want to validate that both parties are taking action to get together. And then the last thing is just making sure it was valuable for both parties. You want to provide value and ensure that both the agency and the brand feel that it was a good connection and that they got value from connecting with each other. So again, the 3 steps for matchmaking: understanding, insight, and introduction. I think that's it for me. There's my contact information. If you're interested in talking more, I'm happy to discuss any questions you might have or anything like that. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Annelle. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much. Again, this is Joe's contact information, or you can shoot me an email and I can forward that to him. I think it's always challenging finding an agency. I feel like they all say that they can do everything. And so if you don't know how to ask the right questions, then it's challenging to find one that fits your needs.